Good evening. Welcome to the August 16th Wyndham Raymond School District Board of Directors meeting. We are in the Wyndham Town Council chambers. It is 6:30. I have a roll call, Mr. Superintendent?
You sure can. Kate Brooks.
Here.
Eric Colby. Here. Jenny Cummins.
Here.
Diana Forson.
Here.
Marge Cavoni.
Here.
Pete Hensel. Here. Don Dillon. Hannah Keeney. Scott McLean. Here.
Okay, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we just have one adjustment to the agenda this evening, and it came in late, so you will not see it on your list. But if you go to appointments, which is number 10, we have an additional person, which will be Erin Beal, 7th grade, Wyndham Middle School. Attainment is her master's, and her salary is $42,440. Did I say it too fast? Wyndham Middle.
And what is her position? 7th grade?
7th grade. And it's B-E-A-L. I'm sorry, I probably should have spelled it. Got it?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. That's the only adjustment we have on for this evening. Okay. So, sorry?
What was her attainment?
Master's.
Thank you.
So first on our agenda this evening is an executive session for a readmission hearing. If I could have a motion, please.
I move to approve going into executive session to consider the possible readmission of a student pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 4056B.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? It is unanimous. We are in executive session. Come on in.
Summary of the board's findings.
Second.
With a motion and a second. All those in favor? It is unanimous. The student is readmitted. Alrighty.
Good luck. If you could pass your
Papers down.
papers to your left.
All right. Next on our
Which papers are you That's different than usual.
yeah.
It's not, I just wrote it all.
Why don't we take just a 5-minute break?
I'll move to amend that to 5 minutes, 15 seconds.
Oh my word, Eric's back.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we will be back.
Is he there?
I know. Bye, live. Okay, hello. We are back from a short break. Next on our agenda is policies, and we have with us, well, I would like Kate. Kate is our policy chair, and this is going to be a policy on the first reading of the athletic co-curricular eligibility. And Kate can let us know who's here to go through it. Okay, so we'll do the motion. Okay, if I give a motion to approve the first reading of policy IGDJ, athletic co-curricular eligibility.
I
So
move.
moved.
Second.
Okay. Anything from the public? Any comments from the board? Okay. Kate
Sorry,
is
I'm late to the party. Missing page 3. No, page 2 out of this.
Yeah, we are. Wow.
And four. And four.
Have the policy?
It didn't copy.
And four.
Yep, and 4.
I reread it.
Good thing it's the first reading.
I got it right
Right.
Now, Kate, you usually have, I know you have your own copy of this policy.
I do. I don't know how you want to handle it since you don't have all of the people who are really in charge have copies. Are you comfortable not having the pages?
I already read it.
I read it online.
Okay,
We received it earlier online.
And it is the first reading.
right. So everybody
Yeah.
okay with moving forward?
Yep.
Okay. This policy was brought to the committee's attention by Mr. Howell, the high school principal, and to kind of have some continuity between the middle school and high school. And I'm going to turn it over to the audience members. Some work has been done. A lot of work has been done by Rich Drummond, our athletic director, and he actually crafted the drafts. I don't know how many drafts, 3 maybe, I think. We were on draft 3, maybe 4, I don't know. And we have also the esteemed middle school principals here and the curriculum. I don't know if you're involved in this, but I don't think you are, but it's nice to acknowledge you. Okay. So if you all wouldn't mind coming up, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Course numbers.
Sorry, didn't mean to hurt you. So we have one policy copy which we're going to kind of share back and forth. But just to tell you a little bit about the reason why this policy is coming before you, we are preparing right now Wyndham High School to transition to a proficiency-based diploma. And one of those items that we've worked on in our transition has been, you may, for those of you who have high school students, have seen them, habits of work, which is academic responsibility and also student social responsibility within the classroom. Our current eligibility policy has actually no mention whatsoever of those 2 attributes and how they actually lend themselves to students being eligible during an academic season. And your current policy, the way that it is written, is that students need to pass all their classes to be participating in athletics. If they fail a course, then in failing that course, they're put on athletic probation for a period of 3 weeks, at which time they need to be passing all of their classes. And if they're not at that time, then they are done for that particular season. There is a waiver process where students, if they demonstrate there's been some sort of academic issue, family hardship, have had some difficulties in the classroom, then they can actually come and meet with me, apply for a waiver, and they can either be put on probation or be restored back to full eligibility. Part of my reason for meeting with the policy committee and wanting to see this come forward was that one of the items that I've used to weigh whether or not waivers are going to take place are those habits of work. Because what I want to see in the classroom is that if a student is putting in their best effort and a student is attending to the interventions and academic supports that we offer them, is still struggling, and that team experience is going to be a good thing for them to continue to be great students at Wyndham High School. We want to make sure that they are on the field and that they're ready to go and that they're continuing to participate in those particular opportunities. The previous policy didn't have any mention of that whatsoever, and really it was me as high school principal going out on my own, using that to then make those determinations. And really part of this is to put that into policy to say, here's what our practice is going to be, is that we're going to use habits of work when we consider kids that aren't passing what their courses are. In our discussion, we also began to, as a policy committee, to look at what is the current eligibility policy that takes place for students either at Jordan Small Middle School or at Wyndham Middle School, and it varied, and there were some differences. And part of this policy also then starts to create an eligibility policy for those two schools for athletics. And I'm not sure if you two address that or we haven't rehearsed.
Well, I think the practices we had at Jordan Small in the past are fairly similar to what is being proposed in the policy. So, I mean, this tightens it up, makes it a little cleaner, more consistency. But what we were doing is pretty much what we're being asked to do, which is a 2 would be passing. And then if students below that, they're in that probationary period. And what they're doing to get themselves back to passing is just as important as, the eligibility issue. And so to get that message across to them that if they're taking advantage of help and doing interventions and staying after school to get work completed that might need to be redone and those types of things. So it's, I just think it fits with a proficiency-based model.
Mr. Patton,
I like
you need the microphone. Sorry.
What I like is that I think it's more clear for students and for parents and for teachers as to what kids need to be able to do to be eligible to play. That for me helps to, I think, gain some leverage with students that may be slipping a little bit and using sports and other activities as a way to make sure that they maintain those grades and keep things going. In addition to that, what I like about the policy is it mirrors the high school, and as we look to bridge that gap in a lot of different ways between the middle schools and the high school, making sure that language is the same and that kids are used to that. We don't have two really completely different policies and they get to the high school and they don't know what to expect. I think that will be an easier transition for kids. So I think it does tighten things up a little bit for all the kids. And then in addition to that, it makes a good transition for the kids going up to the high school. I think we've already talked about making sure that the board adopts a policy communicating that to coaches, to parents, and to kids right away in the fall, so that there's no question about what they need to be able to do to be eligible for the different seasons coming up.
I know overseeing the athletic department, I know before we managed and we got through the eligibility policy and kids were held accountable and also received the support that they needed. But this is just, as Drew referenced, it's the consistency now between the three schools is going to make it a little bit easier. And rolling it out to the parents too is going to be important. But we have some parent nights planned where we can do that. So looking forward to do that when we can.
Just also want to share for the board for Wyndham High School and I believe also for 2 middle schools. The eligibility policy also applies to chamber singers and also to our musical. Anything that you need to audition for also has that. For any of our clubs and activities which don't have that audition component, there isn't an eligibility policy that's attached. And it was our recommendation that we would continue forward with that same practice.
And that goes down to middle school.
So for us, it's athletics in addition to our musical.
Yeah, it wouldn't apply to things that are more intramural in nature. Like we have a running club in the spring. It's not an interscholastic. It's not more like a club.
I was just curious, do we have any insight into is this pretty standard with what other schools and districts are doing? Do you have any knowledge of that?
In looking at what other schools, what they're doing, and there's no one, it's not going to be totally consistent, but this is very similar to what a lot of schools are doing. The middle school piece is very similar to what a lot of schools are doing. A lot of schools are transitioning the middle school eligibility into using fourth quarter grades or third trimester grades to determine fall eligibility. So this is something that is consistent with that. So.
I just want to point out too, because Pete asked about the yellow for the board's copies. that was done intentionally to show you the new language. Because usually you do like a site, the question always comes up, what's changed? And so we wanted to make it very easy for you to see what was different.
What stinks about that is page 2 has got a lot of yellow lines.
Yeah. A lot of change.
Are you looking on the phone?
So I have a couple of questions for you guys, specifically to the middle school level. So what it basically says is during the probationary period, students will need to demonstrate that they are working to bring their scores to a 2.0 or higher, and they have 3 weeks to do so. Would you say that that's a reasonable time frame to get those scores up there? Do you feel very confident that?
Yeah, in my opinion, it is.
Okay.
I feel like if 3 weeks was not a long enough time period, then the proverbial hole that they had dug may have been too much for them.
Okay.
Right. So sometimes when you're teetering on that 2.0 line, it could be one assessment that's preventing the student from being able to do that. And I think that the policy allows some of that flexibility.
Okay.
So that if it is one thing that's holding them back, it's easy for them to show that. It's easy for them to perhaps do some other work to get that score up higher.
Okay.
Can I give you an example from
Yes,
last
please.
year? So I know one student who, after the 3-week period, was not able to become eligible. But anybody else that we had a concern about was able to address it, and quite often be back in good graces, so to speak, before 3 weeks was up.
Okay.
So it quite often was one big assignment or a major summative test where they scored poorly and they had to do some makeup work and then retake. But I can only think of one kid out of 80 or so that participated at Jordan Small last year and had difficulty.
We're talking about a trimester GPA and not a cumulative.
Correct. It'll be different. Jordan Small is on really trimester in terms of reporting. Middle school will be on quarters this year.
Okay.
It's a whole half-hour explanation about why that. But really, just looking at distinct marking periods.
Yeah.
I think the other piece, Scott, I'd like to speak to is I do feel that the expectations at the middle school think about all kids and all learners and all of their different levels that they have. So it's not just kids that may be having some challenges learning, I think, can still really attain that benchmark and being able to participate in sports. I don't think it limits any of our students' access to being able to play sports or participate in after-school activities.
Yeah. Okay. I think that as a parent, I absolutely agree 100%. If a student is falling behind, they're there for school, and that's their number one priority, and that's what school is. What I was concerned about is 3 weeks enough time to pull up that GPA, and was it a cumulative GPA? And basically the language, the way it's written, is if they can't do it, they are completely removed from that sport, which would kill me.
Yeah, and I just if I can add a part to that is
Absolutely.
that first of all, in the probationary period, students can remain with the team and practice. They just can't participate in competitions.
Right.
So they still are allowed to do that. In the case of Wyndham High School, because we've already started our fall season, our probationary period, even though it's a 3-week period, it starts on the first day of school. So we have kids that are now in preseason for 2 weeks. Our first day of school is August 29th or August 30, whatever day kids are coming. And it would then start the 3-week window. So I think our eligibility for kids on probation is September 19th at this point.
Okay. That's based on habits of work.
For us, that's based on their fourth quarter grades. So
Just
for the high
spring,
school,
fall.
so fall sports are based on your fourth quarter grade, and so those are carry forwards. And be honest with you, kids are very cognizant of their grades and their impact. You as a board and we as a district do have, I would say, as we look at eligibility policies, we have one of the more stringent ones as far as kids needing to pass classes in order to remain eligible. And kids are very cognizant of that. And you do see grade fluctuations based on seasons or upcoming seasons, with kids knowing the fact that they need to be eligible in order to then be able to participate in that season that's coming up.
So just maybe to bounce off his and maybe even to answer his. So on that grading system that we're on currently now, like at the middle school, it could be as much to drop to a 2L, could be just missing 2 papers or 3 papers.
It could be.
Could be, just a piece of a project. So 3 weeks in that time frame would be probably sufficient to get that.
A lot of it, when you're talking about averaging scores, it really depends on how many assessments have been given in that particular class to get a sense of the impact on each of those assessments. Obviously, the more that there are, and depending on how recent they are, can play a bigger role in things. Also, to speak to some of the clean slate idea, when kids go into their 9th grade year, regardless of the grades that they received in 8th grade, it's a clean slate for eligibility. The same will happen. Students going into their 6th grade year, they have a clean slate, but that last grading period, whether at Jordan Small or Wyndham Middle School, for 6th and 7th grade year will determine fall eligibility. And part of the discussion around that was making sure that kids maintain that focus on academics, and they're not in the spring they slack off, so to say, even though they're a fall sport kiddo. Some kids, as you might guess, kind of think in that manner, I don't have to worry about that so much. So this was put in place just to keep that, to maintain that focus, because not all students are 3 season students.
Okay. Yeah, do you have any more?
Wait, let me see.
I also like the fact that you guys included musicals in place
Oh, yeah.
as part of the criteria. That was nice.
That's why the title is co-curriculars, as
Yeah.
much as
Absolutely.
athletics.
Right when
That's
you
a
think
big
you're done with it,
time
bam,
commitment.
hit them again.
Yeah.
I want to thank the administrators and Rich in particular, because they really did the legwork on this policy and drove the training and informed the committee what this needed to look like. They're the ones in the driver's seat, so thank you all.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So are there any more comments or questions from the board? Did you find a typo with them?
All kinds of those.
Oh,
Well, aside from missing pages.
There's no typos on page 2 or 4 tonight. Okay?
Ask us, we know. Okay. So,
And poof, they withdraw.
I move to
Okay,
approve the motion. I move
we
to
already did,
approve.
We already did
we
the
already
motion, we
did
just
that.
need to
Oh,
vote.
we did?
Yes,
did.
we just need
Oh, I was too
We're just
focused
got
on the
past
missing pages.
the.
No, we were good.
You are, I know. Okay, all those in favor of approving the first reading? It is unanimous. It is approved, and thank you, gentlemen, for all your work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next on our agenda is, as everybody's aware, or maybe some people at home aren't, we received additional state subsidy, we being the district. So there will be a recommendation from the Finance Committee and then board discussion on what is the best way to allocate these additional state subsidy funds. You want to go over, should we go over basically what we had, or do you want to go right straight to the finance?
Maybe I should do some backdrop.
Good idea.
So what I have is 2 packets. Please take one of each. If you haven't already received the finance committee members will receive it. Wait for that to go around a little bit. I'll be brief in my overview because there may be questions.
John, is this more information than we got last week?
A little different.
Okay.
So I'll start briefly with the heading that says Finance Committee meeting, because that was the agenda for tonight's meeting. And essentially, I just thought that it's notable that, first of all, we're very pleased, of course, that we received additional funds from the state of Maine. But what we do want to also let the public know is that it still is $126,000 less than we received in FY17. So we appreciate it, but I just want the public to know that the revenue stream is a little less than we were given the increase. So,
Are you on?
Apparently not.
Okay.
So with that, what I would say is that we're fortunate to receive $664,000 from the state in this most recent biennial budget. And there were some legal questions that arose that were answered both by the Department of Education as well as our own legal team. So what you may recall is during the budget deliberation and then the actual public budget vote in May, there was an article that gave the school board flexibility in the use of any additional funds that may come. And so initially, the state said to the extent that the money is received, that 50% must go to reduce taxation. But they qualified that statement to say that later on, to the extent that school systems had an article that was passed similar to the one I just described, that you really had complete flexibility in how you would use the funds, which is to say that you would not be, in this district, required to utilize 50% of those funds for reduction in taxation. Not what I'm suggesting. I'm just giving you the overview of what your authority is in the matter. So with that, I think maybe if you could kindly just look at page 3 of that document that I'm referring to. Essentially, because of your warrant article in May that was then further approved in June at budget validation, you have some opportunities, and the opportunities were to increase expenditures, to increase allocation of finances in the reserve fund, and decrease local share expectation, and finally add to undesignated fund balance. So with that, we did hold an informational meeting a week ago relative to this topic, and the administration did make some recommendations to that group and then subsequently to the Finance Committee tonight, which I'll go over briefly. And that's where we start to focus more on the document that has money on the front and has a letter A at the bottom. So a few things. One is that at the 11th hour, a couple of things changed in the stream of money that would come to the district. And specifically, what I'm referring to is they removed professional development funds that were given to districts for their work on performance-based education. And that came as if you will, outside of the operating budget. So it was not something that was embedded in the FY18 operating budget, but it is money that we need to provide that kind of professional development at our school sites, and actually have already contracted with a firm as well at the high school level to make sure that we're moving ahead in this direction. So one of the recommendations was that you allow the administration to utilize $40,000 to pay for the services of the firm that's coming in, and that also pays for some of our teacher leaders who are training others within that arena.
Could you just pause 1 second?
Sure.
Just a second handout.
Yeah, there was two.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Money. You need that one. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So the second thing is that due to the fact that, of course, we've expended an awful lot of money in terms of upgrading our technology for the students in the district, we do have one technology integrator at the high school level that comes under the auspices of the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, who is providing wonderful services for the students and more importantly the teachers to be trained in the use of technology in instructional practice. And so our recommendation was that we would consider that at the middle level as well. And so the cost of that would have been $80,200. And lastly, I asked our facilities director to look at his capital plan to see if there was any recommendations that he may have, and there was a couple. Apparently there's some issues with the part of the roof at the Wyndham High School, and as a person, as you know, who is very diligent with technology and assuring that we are using our energy as efficiently as possible, he had a recommendation for some controls at Wyndham Primary School. In any event, what I have also done, and we can talk about it after maybe I turn this over to Diana, is I have worked out the tax implications for a few levels, not all the levels, because I didn't know what the Finance Committee recommendation was going to be, nor do I know what you folks are going to finally settle on. So with that, I will say that the Finance Committee deliberated. took recommendations seriously and asked questions, and then made a decision about what they bring forth to you folks, and I'll turn it over to Diane to do that.
Thank you.
Just so I can explain this a little further, we have to have the discussion and we have to make a decision as to, if you go through these 2 pages, there's empty lines, and we have to, before we get to the motion, we have to decide as a board what the figures are going to be put in that. Right. So I just want to go through that brief explanation before Diane started. And there is a timing issue, and that is why, outside of the norm, we usually try to give things to folks one night, and then at our next meeting we will vote on it. Because of the timing of when this was allocated to us, and we received all the information, it's imperative to both towns that we get this to them as soon as possible, because they have not been able to send their tax bills out or set them up, and they really are going to be late going out because of that. So we made the decision that we would do both tonight so that we can get that information to them and they can get their tax bills ready for everybody.
Stay warm on it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So as Dawn mentioned, Finance Committee just met prior to this meeting, and after much deliberation and by majority vote, our recommendation is that we return the $40,000 for the professional development for the proficiency-based education that the state had removed last minute. Return that back into the budget. That is the only one that we're recommending, which means that we would like to return 94% of those additional state subsidy monies to the taxpayers.
I want to make a comment. I'm on the Finance Committee. I did not vote for that. I was not in the majority. It was not unanimous. That's a disclaimer. So, now we're open for discussion.
Would you clarify again the figures that we were short from last year? 100 and
I didn't bring the exact number. It's 126,000 in plus minus.
So we're still behind from last year.
The revenue from the state.
Revenue from the state, because we're only adding back 40. So essentially,
we're not adding 40. That 40 was a grant, by the way. Just for clarification, it was never in the budget. The 40,000 was a grant that we received, so it was outside of the budget money. Okay. I didn't even we just found that out.
So help me understand. I'm just trying to figure out how much short we are moving forward for this new school year compared to what we got last year. Is it still 126?
Yeah, it's 126,081.
So we're still behind.
Yes.
From the state.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I guess I need more explanation from the Finance Committee. Your logic.
All right, I can tell you where I was.
Okay.
We'll start at the bottom. There was the recommendation that we take $100,000 towards the capital reserve, which consisted of 2 possible requests from Bill Hansen. And on that particular item, the requests that were there were not on his original. Bill came and presented to us a list of all the capital projects and things that and he prioritized them.
Right.
And this particular one that was requested now was not high on the priority list before, so we tried to get a feel for why did it bubble up.
Yep.
And after hearing about it, it didn't seem like it was a dire need still. So I was able to eliminate that in my mind. The technology integrator, again, Christine came and made a great presentation for it, trying to justify it. But in my mind, again, when we were going through the original budget, that wasn't a request in the original budget, and we had to make some pretty difficult cuts of other budget items to get to where we were, which is still a 4% increase in expenditures, which was the highest since I've been on the board. So to put in a new position at a cost of $80,000, which is a pretty good chunk of the 664, I couldn't justify that in my mind. To add something new when we had to make tough cuts before, and when we're asking the taxpayers to fund such a shortfall. So that was my stance.
Well, I can tell you, I met with Bill. So it is a faulty roof design, something that is going to have to be addressed. But in his list of items, well, you're on the facility committee, so. Yeah, but you know what I mean? So it's something that's going to return.
But it wasn't on his original.
It's in his master plan.
Yep.
So it is there.
Yep.
But it was for like 2019. So it is something that's going to have to be fixed. But I didn't see the urgency to take this money at this time. You know what I mean? It wasn't like we have buckets in the music room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This was kind of an emergency situation. It wasn't that. So I can't justify taking that one project when I know there was other ones too that he had described as more urgent. And the position, I'd rather that go through our regular budget channels and deliberate over new positions. I don't want to fund that position this way.
Did you consider contingency for that position?
Yeah, we have to fund another position that way.
I'm asking if you considered it. Did you? I'm just
In our
asking, I don't know.
deliberations,
Yeah,
did
in
we
your
figure out other ways?
deliberations.
No, they didn't.
No, we did not.
For
Could,
me,
would it help? Just only because Christine was at the finance and gave a little bit more in depth. Would help the rest of the board if Christine went into a little more explanation on exactly the function of the technology integrator and why she's asking for it.
I'm not quite sure it really would, because you got it on page 5 of one of Don's handouts.
Everybody has the answer.
Okay.
I don't know if it's really that necessary.
Well, you heard it. I'm asking for people who
Oh,
did not
I
hear
heard
her. Okay.
I'm fine. I'm all
That's
on
good.
board with it. I'd be very upset to see that happen.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
For me, the reason why I wasn't leaning towards the technology integrator was because I felt like I was not in favor of the purchase of the large mass of hardware in the first place. I actually was more in favor of getting a position like this. And I love the idea of this type of a position. However, I can't in good conscience look at the general public and say, yes, we spent a ton of money in purchasing all of this hardware, and then we had to turn around and hire somebody to the tune of $80,000 to help the kids with it. I don't agree with that at all.
So your feeling is that they should just be paperweight?
Well, no, you don't purchase a car before you learn how to drive it. You have
Saying
to
we
learn how
put
to
the
drive
cart
it
before the
first.
horse.
Yes, it wasn't part of the original
It was
budget
not.
request,
Right.
and we had people that had their hours reduced or lost part of positions, and now we're going to put this person ahead of them. That's part of my thinking.
I'm just being experienced with getting some equipment and not having the help to work with it. I think that it's important. Also considering the amount of technology that our children are bombarded with and we use all the time. I think it's vital that we have people to support that. Not only the teachers, but others, the tech integrators would be key.
I agree with that 100%, but
I'm sure you do. I'm not saying you don't.
this was especially hard for me because I've got a kid that's going into
Right.
middle school.
Right.
But I would much rather see them use the older machines and incorporate a position like this. And then the following year, get the new machines. We did it the opposite. We did it the wrong
Yeah,
way.
I think
Eric,
in my opinion.
go ahead, Eric.
I just want to go to, just, you have to put yourself in that shoes. It's one thing that you're on your job and they give you you're out there cutting brush and they give you a saw blade that's not sharp or it's not effective. You're not going to say, well, I'm going to just go through it. I'm going to tough it up. If that machinery's not working well, that slows the teacher down. That spends more time trying to reboot things. It causes a lot of time loss and a lot of education loss.
It also causes a lot of time loss if I don't have proper training before I use the saw.
Right.
True. So
Should've
that
trained
the
them
hardware
first.
wasn't just, it isn't really a training issue. I don't think when we first bought the hardware, we needed stuff that was working properly. It wasn't that they weren't trained. If the thing was, when they're doing a massive test, things are crapping out on them. It was, you'd have to put yourself behind that desk working with 20-something kids with computers before you could say that it was not necessary. That's all I'm saying.
I'm not saying that it's not necessary. Absolutely
No, none
not.
of
What
us
I'm
said
saying is that it was not in the budget. This board approved to purchase the machines when we should have been approving for this position. That's my
You're still
opinion.
not getting it. The position wasn't to fix those machines. Those machines couldn't be fixed. They had to be new. This is just a part of that. Someone that's now helping, all the little things that teachers have to, work with, them screens, the projectors, and things like that as well. Someone's got to train them to be able to.
Right, and if it was a critical need, why wasn't this in the budget process?
Well, I don't think she took it up because she wanted to, did you? You took it up because you were trying to meet a 4% or 3% goal. You weren't just like, wow, I want this out.
It wasn't there.
I don't think it was even there during the
It
initial
wasn't
6%.
there.
Well, I won't fight that, but I just want to make sure you realize that those computers and tools are very important to have. Yes, you need training, but they're very important to have the right tools when you're working, whether you're a teacher or mechanic or whatever. You've got to have the right tools for that day to go a little smoother and more instruction being done.
We agree.
Yeah. I will also say that the reason why I did not go with the capital reserve, to go back to your question, it is not a dire need like Diana had said. I believe 90,000 of that was for that, what did you call it, a barrel roof? And the remaining 10,000 was for basically power consumption at the Wyndham Primary School.
Correct.
Bill has already budgeted for that power consumption. So I can't I'm not going to vote.
How can he be budgeted
For the cost of electricity.
Cost of electricity?
No, I mean, you said he's already budgeted. Why is he asking for it if he's already got it in his budget?
To save money.
It's a monitor.
Save money.
To save.
It's a monitor.
Okay. But if he's already got it budgeted for this monitor, XYZ, whatever you want to call it, he's already budgeted for that in his budget, why would he be asking again for whatever it is?
Right.
No.
So
No, he's not got it budgeted.
He's budgeted for
doesn't
the
have
amount
it.
of electricity cost.
Right.
By spending this extra money, it would allow him to save on the energy costs.
So why
That
would we
really
Why
not
is that about it?
want him to have it then?
Road.
Why would we not want him to have it if it's going to save money?
I don't know what this cost savings is or how long that would take to do.
I don't
I
either.
don't have any of that detail.
I want to make this a little simpler, and only because let's start at the top and let's do these one. I think it'll be easier if we do it one at a time, so we're not all over. To see if, do we all, so we can try to fill in numbers. Okay, so if we start with the top, which is at 40,000, do we need any more discussion on that, or does everybody agree or disagree, or?
Is that what you want to hear?
Yeah, I want to find out so we can.
Yeah.
Does everybody agree on? Okay, so so 40,000 is the first one, so at least we can move down. Okay, so we can. That middle one seems the toughest one. Let's go to the bottom. All right.
Honestly, I understand the logic behind that, and I can live with removing that.
The bottom.
The bottom one.
The question I have is it going to cost us more in the long run? Are we going to pay more if we wait? Because that happens all the time, especially in construction and future damage and all that. I don't want to think we're saving money now and spend twice as much later.
It was on his plan down the road anyway.
Did you say 2019?
That's just
It
off the
was.
top of my head.
That's correct.
Okay.
We
We pulled out his plan
Yeah, no,
for the project.
Okay, that's the 90,000 piece of it.
That's the 90,000
That's the
piece that
90.
you
So do
just
we all?
mentioned.
Right. So do we all agree that we can,
I thought it's 100.
Well, 10 was the power monitor.
oh, we didn't get to that, we'll
Oh,
discuss
okay,
that separate.
Gotcha, gotcha.
I wanna do them one at a
I'll
time.
tell you, it is tough
So
not
we-
having enough time and ability to get all the answers that we need. So, I mean, I understand where you guys are coming from, it's only in one night, 40 minutes.
That's why we
You
had
did have
an
the opportunity,
informational session a
So
week
you did have
ago.
the opportunity though.
That's why
But
we
that
did
was
that.
No, they had a meeting last week.
Yeah, that was on vacation. I guess.
But anyway,
That's true.
I would have to, Bill, I know you're not the facility, I get that. I mean, Dawn, you're not Bill. You're not Bill. But has Bill expressed to you the fact that that barrel roof is in dire condition? I guess that's kind of,
No, I think I would echo what Diana has said, which is that he certainly would want it done, but there may have to be decisions internally made that he does without something to reprioritize within the current operating budget. So I don't want to scuttle the idea, but I think that's probably an easier decision to make than the integrator.
And then the other thing that we did discuss on that was that if it did come to a dire situation, rather quickly, Bill does have the ability to come to the board and ask us to release money from the contingency, I guess.
okay. So are we going to discount the barrel roof?
Yes. Is there
That's a
anybody that
Take it
consensus,
off?
I'll go along with it.
Okay. Now, while we're still on that one, what about I'm still not too clear on that $10,000 for the Wyndham Primary. I mean, if that's going to save us money, I would prefer to just give it to them and have it done. At the facilities committee, I know somebody made there was a comment that he can take it from somewhere else, but if he takes it from somewhere else, then something else is not going to get done.
Do you know how much it's going to save though?
No, I don't.
We don't know because it's a
No, I don't
power
know.
monitoring
Well, that's my problem.
system.
That's my problem with it.
And I hear you, that makes sense, but I have a lot of trust level that he doesn't do things.
Willy-nilly.
I work with a lot of RSUs. I just did a bid for one up north the other day, and I mean, it was a mess. I mean, his stuff is put together well. So I have a high confidence in him, but I'm not going to stay there in front of you guys all night.
I honestly, I can't make a knowledgeable decision about 10,000. This 10,000, I really can't. So, I mean, for me, in the scheme of things, in our budget, 10,000. I don't want to diminish the fact that $10,000 to me is a heck of a lot of money, but in the scheme of the whole big tamale, it's small potatoes. So I can live with it either way. I can live with keeping 10,000, or I can live with let's get rid of the whole 100,000. And if he finds that it's real, because I don't know if it saves us money. If he finds that it really would be critical, or we find out after the fact we can save a lot of money, then let's take it out of contingency.
I just want to speak personal opinion as a taxpayer.
Yep.
Off the board now.
Yep.
The difference in this money, on that basis that we use a $250,000 house, is what, $35, $40? I mean, I did the math once upon a time, but so yes, money's going back, and that's important. It's their money. But I think they put us in charge to make sure that we're giving them the best. I want to make sure that we're not shorting anybody based on that.
No, I'm totally with you. I'm just talking the 10,000. I'm just talking the 10,000.
Because if it all took me was only $50 out of my pocket, and that was going to help, get us where we need to. I'll pull it out. But we have to do it as a collective to make that.
I mean, the point that you make that this was not part of the original discussion when he came for his cost center resonates with me, because if that rose, if it's that important, I would think it would have been included.
We would have heard about it.
So I appreciate his due diligence, because nobody does due diligence like Bill Hansen, as we all know, and I appreciate that. But I can live with both the 90 and the 10, the whole 100. I can live with not doing that.
I can live with 100.
Okay. I think okay. So we're going to take the whole 10,000 out of the equation. And the one thing we have not done, and we're going to go to the technology integrator next, is that, Dawn, you never went over what the difference would be on,
Well, I'm happy to do that, or
on
the
what
financial.
tax implications would be for these. That's the other.
Wouldn't we do that
Packet.
after we decide what we're, or do you want it before and then after?
No, it doesn't really matter, but I'm just saying, I'm just reminding him that at some point in time, we've got to go over that
Yeah.
so everybody's aware of
Yep, good
that.
information.
Okay, so again, we're back to the technology integrator. Well, I am not for cutting. Sorry, but I'm just not. That was not a unanimous facility finance decision. Anna, you haven't had anything to say. Go ahead.
Wow.
Is your button on?
Yes.
Probably. Usually leaves.
I can't say that I am a huge fan of the technology we've chosen, but the fact of the matter is we have it. We've spent a lot of money on it, and I would like to ensure that it is used appropriately. Whether or not I agree with the route we're going with technology, that's gone. We've done that. I can't harp on that. I have to go forward now, and we've spent a lot of money. I want to make sure all of our students know how to use everything we've given them. Otherwise, we spent money for paperweight. So I would like to see that remain. I would like to see us fund that position.
And I know a lot of people didn't get to see it.
Jenny?
Maybe I could throw this up.
Jenny. Sorry. I'm trying to keep it open. Jenny.
I thought you said it. Sorry.
Take
I'm
turns.
going to get to you. And then everybody.
Second Kate.
Jenny.
I am very, very, very for the technology integrator. I think that's a vital need for the kids and for the teachers, and I think it will add a lot. We see all the things that the tech integrator has added to the high school, and I think in the same way that we're doing academic eligibility and co-curricular, we're going down to middle school to get them prepared for high school. I think that we need to do it at the middle school level to get them ready for high school.
You can tell us again, Pete. I know.
All right. I don't look at this as a cut because it was never there in the beginning. I would say that this is saying no to additional spending. Again, like Scott, I'm going to have 2 daughters at the middle school, and I'm sure they could benefit. But if this was such a vital position, I just don't understand why it wasn't presented to us initially. So I'm going to be against adding that additional spending.
First of all, I appreciate the deliberations that the Finance Committee undertook, and I also appreciate the opportunity because of the timeline, because you know I'm a real stickler about voting the same night I'm getting stuff. I don't like it. So I appreciate everybody's efforts, and particularly Don. He's been cranking out all these different scenarios. And it's and I also appreciate the balance that we must have as board members between taxes. But for me, and I understand that this was not in the original, I get it, that it wasn't part of the original bid. And I see your point of view. I really do. It was a tough budget year, and personally, I imagine this didn't land in there because it was a tough budget year. I hear what you're saying about the technology, but over the years I've clamored a lot about the inventory of our apparatuses, and I have specifically asked Mr. Hickey. What can I think of his first name? Bob. Thank you, Robert.
I wish you could call him Bill.
You said you could call him Mr. Hickey.
And the thing that has always struck me, and particularly the most recent, and I don't have it with me, I didn't even think that that would be part of this discussion actually, but the thing that really struck me about the most recent inventory is the age of the devices that we replaced. And I understand, I'm with you, Anna, That gunboat has gone down the river. We spent the money on it. Everybody had a vote on it. And the majority ruled, and we bought them. We own them. I get it. Not everybody likes the devices. Not everybody thought that we should buy the devices. But now we own them. And it's my responsibility, now that we spent that much money, me personally, to guarantee that they have the support to be used. Because otherwise, I don't know how much that cost. Million? I don't know. It was a lot. That's to me a waste. That's wasteful. And I can't endorse waste because our budget is too important. And taxes, let me tell you, I don't like it when mine go up. Nobody does. I'm very aware of this whole tax reduction scenario. But first and foremost, my job and my duty is to the students. And I really feel like, despite the fact that this wasn't in it, I understand the mental process of the committee, that it wasn't part of the original. But I look at this as an opportunity. And so I am in support of it. I'm going to shut up.
Well, all of that, plus, I go back to kind of, and Christine's come before us multiple times, and I need more professional development time, and blah, 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 and all of this. And, and it's true, we agree, and we would love to give it to you, and it costs money. And to me, this person is getting it internally. It isn't having another day where, the teachers can all go there and they learn something. I mean, this is an in-house, this is a person who lives there, who breathes it, and is really available to the staff to be able to help them, to be able to get that development that they need to be able to transfer it to the students. So whether it was or it wasn't in the budget before, I think I see this as an opportunity to be able to get somebody in the schools that will be of exceptional help to the students and the staff. So I'm in favor of it. So, yeah. I know. Go ahead.
Right. And I'm in favor of the position. It's not the position I have a problem with at all. Christine outlined why it's needed, so it's not I'm not against that, but I'm not for funding it this way. So I'm against it.
Eric?
I would like to go to Mr. Howell if I could. If I was correct, last year we had a tech position that retired.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, yours.
Oh, you went to the wrong person.
Okay, but
No wonder
it
he's
was at the
looking at
high
you
school.
funny.
That's why I'm looking at you like this.
District-wide.
District-wide position, and they retired, correct? And one of the reasons we didn't talk about putting that position, because the budget was going on, and you're like, well, they're retiring, so I got that money out. So to me, if I remember listening to that conversation, you really would have liked to have that in at that time. You were thinking budget restraints, and it was like, I don't have to cut anybody, they're going. So it seemed to me that it was just an easy way for you to help tighten down all the tightening that you had to do. That was the way I saw it. I could be wrong, but so it looked like there was a position. It's not like it's a new position. Somebody just retired, and we need to fill it.
And I used that position because it was undermined to have the new math coach that teaches math instruction too. So of course, we looked at that really strongly. So I had a choice between I have a position, we really need a math coach. This person's retiring. In the perfect world, I would have come forward to both of you, but we had constraints in our budget last year.
But I guess that's what I'm trying to draw. Really, it was thought about at that time. It was bubbling around at that time. This wasn't like, ooh, we got cash. I need that position. And I know that when we work for a living, it's hard to get to all the things that go on during the school day. But those of us that went to the library that saw the technology integration piece that some of the teachers are doing, I was blown away. I was blown away by the teacher, I don't remember names, I apologize, that did the website where the kids had to build it. They were building it to the whatever the project was they were working on. So you had to know the stuff to build the website. it was unbelievable. And that position helps aid those teachers that want to go outside the box for that kind of stuff that's going to be in the next generation when they're on the workplace. I'll shut it down. I'm for it.
Scott, I know we know, but you can repeat.
I think technology is quickly becoming my Achilles heel with this board. I am obviously against this. I am not against the position. I am against the timing and the way that we are funding it. So that being said, looks like we are going to be moving forward. I hope that we are able to at least get some serious utilization out of these machines.
Okay, so we have five people who want to include the $80,200 for the technology integrator, and 3 who like the position but do not want to fund it this way, to put it that way. So my thinking is at this point in time that the figures that will be going in
Do you have the figures?
I'm going to give it to him now. Would be the, I'm sorry. Do you need me? Oh, do you have it?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I can explain to you what I have.
And I'm not sure, let's see, because I'm not even sure what each one of these means in relation to these, but I guess we want to keep the 40,000.
Yes.
It was unanimous on the 80,200 for the technology integrator, and we do not want to fund the capital reserve.
So,
Do I have that correct?
so on your agenda item, you should be,
We have to plug in those numbers. We got to plug in the numbers. I don't know which one goes where. That's why I asked him.
yeah, so you've
Where
got
is that
those
going?
2 cost centers, which are both, I think, going to be Christine's, the 40,000 and the
Correct.
80,200. So that would be those 2 specific cost center ones. And then your top line there is going to be your 664, 219, 42 minus 120,200.
So, do you want to fill the numbers in now?
The amount.
Or do you want to talk about the numbers?
That's what it is.
Let's just fill in the numbers.
Fill in the numbers.
I do have a question about the numbers though, because
Yeah.
having learned about the 40,000 for a grant.
Okay, so let's clarify that. What we're saying is that the $40,000 that we anticipated resided outside of the operating budget, but we've already committed.
No, I
So
get
now
that.
we need the money, so we're going to put it in the operating budget, which will allow us to spend the money for the service.
I'm with you now. Okay.
So fill in the numbers and answer questions after. So it's 544,019.
We're on the first line now.
Yes.
Give the number again, please.
544,019.42.
Yep.
I don't know that we need zeros, but it's 0 to allocate funds to the
Yep.
reserve.
Okay.
It is $40,000 to increase the appropriation for the Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment.
I thought both were hers.
They are.
Yeah,
So we're going to
Yeah.
So, but you have to separate it?
Yeah.
$80,200.
I guess it doesn't.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't. You could do it either
Yeah,
way.
so I wrote down one.
So 120,200.
Right,
That's fine.
This is just by cost center.
right.
That's
Do
right.
we have to be specific on what it's for?
Nope, because you're just allocating a certain amount of money.
To her. One.
0 to undesignated funds.
Yep.
And that's that.
So if you would indulge me, with the 544, blah, 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 going back to.
Reduce.
Huh? Reduce. What percentage of that of the total 600 is then?
82. Yeah, a little
Oh,
error.
that's right, you changed it.
Yeah,
Right.
82.
82.
So what I will need to, and so this, well, you haven't taken action, but just to inform you, should you vote this, then what I need to do is redevelop the community assessment, which I can do first thing in the morning and send it off to the town managers.
Yeah, we don't have, none of the ones you did for us are close to
No.
that, right?
Well, no, it's
I
in
don't think so.
between.
We didn't have that one.
No.
Would you like, you
But-
have a question about that?
No, but.
No, and just to be clear too, with the percentages per town, that it's
Yeah, thank you. So,
Right down.
so what the school board knows, and maybe the public's not as familiar with, is that there is a formula that's been developed and approved by the school board for the two communities to share what we call the local additional. And this year, my recollection is it's 36-64. 64% Wyndham's, 36% Raymond. However, the law specified that the percentages would follow the unit allocation, which is called the ED 279 unit allocation for RSU 14 at that level, which is denoted,
3169.
thank you, 61 Wyndham, 39 Raymond. So that's going to be a credit or a reduction to the two communities in that format. The other more specific thing is that they have already sent us their first allotment against the approved budget, which is now higher than they're going to need to pay for the rest of the year. So what we will do is reduce the final 11 over 11 months, so that's how they will receive that reduction. So we'll be sending that as a letter. You've already done your formal warrant assessment. We don't need to do another one. We need to send a formal letter based on this action.
So when you redo this, is this what you're going to send out to us?
Yes. That's called the community assessment. Okay?
All right. Is everybody clear? I don't want to move forward if somebody's got. We all set? We're set. Okay. So, if we could have whoever makes the motion, I think it would be prudent to go to also add the numbers in the top, so it's part of the motion.
Have the numbers on the top. So
No, when you make the motion, I vote, vote
So
that
start
in,
at
about
whereas?
the adopted and form presented to this meeting, right here, now therefore, you know what I mean? I move that, and then go up to after now therefore the school board votes to allocate, blah, 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 right, John?
Yes.
Yes, so it's part of the motion.
Do you want me to read it?
If you'd like.
I move that the vote entitled Vote Regarding Disposition of Additional State Subsidy be adopted in the form presented to this meeting. Now, therefore, the school board of RSU 14 votes to allocate the additional state subsidy as follows. $544,000, and it was $19.42 would be to reduce the education tax assessment for the 2017-18 fiscal year, to allocate the reduction per the priority notice received from the Maine Department of Education, and to provide this tax relief in the form of adjustment credits or refunds as the superintendent deems advisable. Do I have to read the zeros?
I would.
There will be no money allocated to the reserve fund. There will be $120,200 will increase the 2017-18 appropriation for the Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment, and there will be no money designated going to the undesignated fund balance.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments from the public? Any comments from the board? We're commented out, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
Oh, I'm sorry. I know.
Just going through the motions.
I know, I
aren't you?
did. I was like, talk about tired. I just kind of strike that.
Too late.
No,
Too late.
no, I caught it. I'm gonna oppose.
Can you vote no if you made the motion?
I was like, oh my word, I can't believe I just.
Yeah, isn't it though? Okay, so moving on.
So close.
moving
I caught
on.
it.
Next on the agenda is the budget reserve fund transfer. So if I could have a motion, and then Dawn could give us just a brief explanation of what this is.
I move that we transfer the sum of $66,650 from the budget reserve fund to the Wyndham Primary School administrative salary and benefits accounts.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Dawn, just a little bit of background.
Yes, first of all, clearly we want to thank the board for allowing us to hire an assistant principal for Wyndham Primary School earlier. And in those discussions, the recommendation from the superintendent was that we utilize funds from your reserve fund in the operating budget. So that's why this action is before you tonight. What had been given as a proposal to you was that the Wyndham Primary School principal would find some money within his operating budget to help pay for this expense. So the expense is actually $108,748, but he has come up with funds that would reduce that somewhat. So the request is for $66,650.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Comments from the board? Okay, all those in favor? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you seconded. Opposed?
I'm gonna abstain. I wasn't there for the.
Oh.
I wasn't there for
I
the
thought
original
you abstained.
presentation. I didn't know how it all.
Abstain? Okay, one abstention.
Thank you.
All right. Next we have appointments. If somebody would like to make a motion. And these are, if I'm not mistaken, these are replacements. Sandy?
Yes.
Thank you.
I move to approve the following appointments for the 2017-2018 school year. Alexander Adams, music teacher, Jordan Small Middle School, BA, $50,405. Rose Undercuffler, 3-5 music teacher, Jordan Small Middle School, BA, $20,487. Rachel Bell, grade 4 teacher, Manchester School, with a master's, $47,315. Margaret Sparrow, grade 5 teacher, Manchester School, master's, $45,688. Courtney Regan, school nurse at Raymond Elementary School with the BA, $37,397. Danielle Clark, grade 7 teacher, Wyndham Middle School, BA, $34,958. Brianna Butts, grade 2 teacher, Wyndham Primary School, BA, $34,145. Lisa Kennerson, special ed coach, Wyndham Primary School, BA, $62,809. Keely Trichetta, kindergarten teacher, Wyndham Primary School, master's, $44,062. Melissa Fries, grade 3 teacher, Wyndham Primary School, BA, $57,219. And Erin Beal, 7th grade teacher, Wyndham Middle School, master's, $42,440. Didn't write that.
Second.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you. Next we have report of the secretary to approve the minutes of June 28th.
I move to approve the minutes of the June 28th, 2017 meeting.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments from the public? Comments from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor? I'm abstaining, and one abstention. All right. Board roundtable oh, wait a minute, committee reports, I'm sorry, committee reports first.
Finance committee.
Finance. I think is there anything else? I don't.
That's all we got.
I know. I didn't think so. I don't think.
I do have one question on the agenda. Was the new transportation vehicle for the high school, was that discussed?
It was informally discussed, and the feeling was that it should go forward, and since the money was being allocated within the operating budget, that we would,
So we
we
didn't
would
need
buy
to
it,
add
and it would be under the auspices of transportation for district-wide,
Okay.
as I recall.
Great. I don't they have to go. On that one, but we're going to get to him in a minute. The other facility committee. Policy. Update.
We met to plot out work for the year. You should have all gotten this beautiful document. If you have any feedback or any other policies that you think might be worthy of consideration, we are open to suggestions. There are a couple things that are already slated. As you know, we have the graduation policy is on hold. We've got some more information we need to get. Facilities use is an ongoing thing. And the grading and reporting is really rising to the top as far as the administrators are concerned, nailing down. We've done some work in past years. I think I have draft 4, some crazy notion from 2015. But that is a really important policy, and it's not going to be a quick fix in getting that together. The rest of them, there's some things with nutrition that we're looking at and a wellness policy that will be immediate work. The rest of it, Sandy's going to work with the A team to see what the priority might be for those. So that's where we are.
And I don't think any of the other regular ones. Not on our boat. Did anybody ever pick up on that?
What did I send out last? What did you guys ask me to do? Look into it.
Yes, we did.
I got back to you on
Rich
that.
Reserve.
Rich Reserve. So I thought the Rich. I had not got back.
Oh, okay. Okay. Scott, on your infamous
Yes.
committee, which is
Yes, which the committee that was only supposed to last about 6 meetings. So we recently met again, and we have brought in a marketing planner, somebody who really kind of specializes in the marketing piece to try and move the project forward. We are looking to move this referendum question on the November ballot. We have quite a bit of work to do in the meantime. It seems like we've got a pretty good person in place. She knows how the PAC works, more so than I know how the PAC works, which is good. The entire marketing piece actually will start, it is set to kick off September 12th with a live press conference down at the Public Works facility. It is being marketed as the shared vehicle maintenance facility. Did I get that right?
You did.
Okay, because I'm shooting from the hip, because they handed us a flyer that they're going to start handing out to people, and I thought it was in my bag, and it's not, so I'm kind of shooting from the hip right now. I think that the next meeting that we have coming up, we are going to be discussing how much money we are willing to play with as far as the budgeting piece of it goes. It looks like the town has allocated somewhere in the tune of, correct me if I'm wrong, 65, something like that. So that expense is being picked up by the town. They haven't said anything to myself or Kate as far as what you got. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. And once I get an updated flyer, because we had all recommended changes and stuff like that, I will certainly pass that along to everybody else here, so I can can kind of gauge your input. Is there anything that anybody would like me to take back to that table?
No, but I'm just wondering, do they have the wording of the referendum question done and put together, like the costs and all that? Because I'm just thinking back to when
Timetable.
we were contemplating putting something on the ballot and the timetable that we were working backwards from.
Yes.
I mean, it's got to be getting pretty tight.
So right now, what the stages that they are at is they're at the surveying and DEP permitting stages. They are hoping to have actual cost figures by September 11th, so that we will have those actual cost figures by September 12th for that press conference.
It's going to be tight.
It is going to be very tight.
With an early November fall.
I don't know.
Not my.
The thought behind that process was, and I can kind of understand it, and then I'm kind of like, we have a lot of work to do between now and November 4th or 6th or whatever it is that we either do it now or we do it then. We're still going to have this crunch time at this time of year.
Did they discuss the back end dates? Oh, what do you call it? When we go to the referendum, we have that.
Oh, yeah.
The back plan?
Yeah. Thank you.
Back
Yeah,
plan.
because you have to do, it's the steps, and you don't
Right.
need the final figures because when we start ours, we don't always have the
Right.
figures. There's like a drop dead date that you're going to start this step and then this one.
That's fine.
Okay.
No, there is nothing like that. That's why they are hoping to have the final figures by the press conference date, so that so that as we are pushing that message out, we are able to give residents numbers.
I think if I could piggyback too, and it's a question that I have. I think as we move forward with this very long commitment, if we could get some clarity as a school board, what the expectation is for us as far as resources and
Right. I mean, they want to help.
what
What do they want?
Right.
Specifically, what would they
or
like us
what
to
we
do?
can offer, whether it's listserv, but I think
So far, that seems to be the only thing that they
Right.
have mentioned, and then I think that they want to set up like some sort of an open house, jumpy house thing Saturday afternoon after
Jumpy
sports
house?
are done. Try and
Bring
get
your
the kids
kids.
in.
Oh, a bouncy house.
Bouncy house while the
Oh.
parents take a tour of the dilapidated facilities.
slated.
Johnny's gonna play with a green sky.
What could possibly go wrong?
Okay. Okay, fine with me. All righty. Sandy.
So school is going to open, and we are getting ready for a wonderful school year. The first day of school will be August 29th, and that's grades 1 through 9. And on the 30th, which is a Wednesday, it will be grades 10 and 12 will be coming. And then kindergarten starts on the 31st, which is Thursday, August 31st. Facilities look good. We're down to the crunch to make sure all the classrooms are clean and hallways are ready to go. But it will get done. And I expect a really great beginning of the school year. I would just encourage the public to be mindful of traffic and children on the streets waiting for their buses. Make sure you're mindful of that, because we just want to make sure you slow down and watch out for our children. We're ready to go.
Sandy, have we filled all of our positions?
I think we have. We had signs on, yes, at this point in time. There might be some ed techs, special ed techs, but as far as classroom teachers, we're ready to go.
And the letters ready to go out? The letter being the infamous red letter. The letter, did it go out?
Offering the
haven't-
option during it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, they went out.
Camera on my computer. Great, excellent. And by the way, and I think you said it before, the plan is to send that out twice a year?
You do it 2 or 3 times.
And it's probably different each time because, as everybody saw, it must have been a very busy year because the 4th grade in Wyndham and Raymond is both math huge. Yeah. 3rd grade, kind of odd. But anyway.
Any idea what our kindergarten numbers look like?
Not at this time. Not a problem. I know that. I would have heard by now. But I think the typical Raymond's a little lower than primary school. But it fluctuates until school really opens.
Around 18 in Raymond now, so that's for all classes.
Is it possible to get the enrollment figures K through 12 once you final?
Yeah.
I'd like to see those.
Excellent. Okay, we'll do a quick board roundtable. If anybody, and we don't have to go around. If anybody's got anything?
I do.
Go.
I would like to offer a congratulations to Mark and Heather Whitaker of Wyndham. They hosted a benefit for Nolan Sear, and it was primarily it was a big party with a lot of fundraising going on with the neighborhood of Sebago Heights, and they raised over $20,000 for a pretty much a neighborhood barbecue cookout, running dirt bikes around the double lot.
A lot of auction items.
There was a
raffle
ton
items.
of auction items.
Cool.
A lot of local businesses.
Yeah. So yeah, it was really nice being a part of it and seeing the generosity come out of this community and trying to rally around one of our own. So
Excellent. Great. That's it. Nobody else have anything else? Okie doke. So next on the agenda, we will be going into executive session to give Sandy his evaluation. Even though it says superintendent's goal.
I move to enter into executive session to discuss superintendent's evaluation pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 405(6)(a).
Second.
Okay. Yeah. Right, and we will not be returning to the regular meeting. So that will be it for this evening. So,
All in favor?
yep, all in favor? Yeah, I know. Okay, we're in executive session and you can turn your back.